When I walked out of my house that Friday night, nobody noticed. Not my wife, not my teenage son, not my daughter, not even the dog barked. I didn't make a scene. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even say goodbye. I just picked up a small overnight bag, stepped outside, and shut the door behind me, quietly. I stood there for a second, just listening. Nothing. Just the hum of the fridge, the dull glow of the living room TV, and the sound of forks clinking against plates. I waited. Nothing. And that's when it hit me. I could vanish, and no one in that house would care until the laundry stopped getting done. My name's Daniel. I'm 40 years old. I'm a dad, a husband, an engineer, the guy who fixes the leaky sink, takes the trash out, remembers to refill the paper towels before they run out. The dependable one. Always here, always quiet, always doing what needs to be done. And somewhere in that always I disappeared. I wasn't sad. Not exactly. It's not like anything happened. There was no big fight, no betrayal, no blow-up moment. It was more like a slow fade, like when your phone screen dims before it goes dark. You barely notice until it's already black. I'd been feeling like a ghost for months, maybe longer. My son, 15, spends more time with his headset than he does with his family. My daughter, 9, dances for strangers on TikTok. My wife, she works from home, always on Zoom, always tired, always somewhere else mentally. We'd become roommates. Co-workers in the same building called family. We talked logistics, not life. Did you pay the bill? Can you pick up milk? The plumber comes Tuesday. Touch? Rare. Laughter. Faint. Connection. Non-existent. But again, no one did anything wrong. That's what makes it so hard to explain. The idea came to me randomly, one night over dinner. We were sitting in silence, each of us glued to our screens, eating frozen lasagna on paper plates. And I thought, what if I just walked out right now? Not for good. Just for a couple days. No text. No call. Just gone. Would anyone notice? Would they panic? Would they care? I needed to know. So I planned it. I told my boss I needed a mental health day. I booked a cheap Airbnb outside the city, a little cabin behind someone's farmhouse. No Wi-Fi, spotty reception. Perfect. Friday afternoon I came home from work. Normal routine. Kissed my wife on the head. She barely looked up. Kids were in their rooms. Doors shut. I wrote nothing, said nothing. Just grabbed my overnight bag, slipped on a hoodie, and left. Walked right out the front door. The drive was quiet. No music. Just the road. I half expected my phone to buzz with, "Where are you?" It didn't. By the time I reached the cabin, it was dark. The kind of dark you only get far from streetlights. The air smelled like wet wood and dirt. Inside it was basic. One bed. A tiny kitchen. Old couch. No TV. Just a window looking out at trees. And silence. I sat on the bed and waited. Nothing. I wasn't sure if I felt free or forgotten. The first night was weird. I kept thinking I heard my name being called, but it was just the wind. Or maybe my imagination. I lay there wondering, are they worried yet? Are they angry? Have they even noticed? I imagined my wife pacing the house, my daughter crying, my son opening my door and finally saying, "Dad?" But deep down I knew. They were probably just living. Business as usual. Saturday morning, I made coffee on the little gas burner. Sat on the porch. Watched the fog rise from the ground like it had a purpose. I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Stillness. Not boredom, not sadness. Just stillness. No one needed me. No alarms. No school runs. No honey-do lists. No middle of the night "Dad, I threw up" wake-up calls. Just quiet. I didn't know whether to cry or just breathe it in. By mid-afternoon I started walking. There was a trail behind the cabin. Nothing marked, just a dirt path worn from years of footsteps. I followed it. Every crunch of gravel under my boots sounded louder than it should have. Birds fluttered. Trees creaked. My breath felt foreign, like I was hearing it for the first time. And for the first time in forever, I started talking. To myself. I don't even know what I like anymore, I said out loud. I used to play guitar, I added. I used to paint. I used to laugh. I couldn't remember the last time I'd laughed. Like really laughed. The belly kind. I kept walking. Saturday night was harder. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt sharp, like a reminder. I sat in the dark with a notebook and wrote 4 words. Do they even know? Then I scratched it out. Too dramatic. Too self-pitying. But it lingered in my mind, like smoke after a candle goes out. By Sunday morning, I knew I had to go home. Not because I missed them, though I did, but because I couldn't keep living like a ghost. They needed to see me. And if they couldn't, then maybe it was time for a bigger decision. I pulled into the driveway just after dinner time. House lights were on. TV flickered inside. The dog barked once and went back to sleep. I opened the door and stepped in. No one looked up. My wife glanced over from the couch. Hey, you were gone a while. Did you grab the milk? Milk. That was the moment I knew. They hadn't even noticed I was gone for 2 days. I didn't say a word. Just walked to the kitchen, sat down, and started writing a letter. Because if they weren't going to ask where I'd been, then maybe it was time I told them. The pen felt heavy in my hand, like I hadn't written anything by hand in years, which was probably true. My fingers cramped halfway through the first sentence. Still, I kept going. At the top of the page, I wrote, "To the people I love the most, from the man you stopped seeing." I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was being poetic or deep. I just didn't know what came next. I wasn't angry. That's what I had to remind myself. I wasn't writing this to guilt trip anyone. I wasn't trying to punish them. I just wanted them to see me, really see me. Like I used to feel seen. I started slow. I left for 2 days. No call. No text. No note. I didn't sneak away to make a point or cause a scene. I just walked out the front door to see what would happen. I needed to know if you'd notice. If I mattered as more than a background character in this house. There was a pause. Not on the paper, in me. My chest felt tight. My heart started racing like I was confessing to a crime. But I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just telling the truth. I know we're all busy. I know life is messy. I know it's hard to stay connected when school, work, phones, and stress pull us in every direction. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being a family. We became something else, a machine, a daily routine, a set of overlapping calendars with no real conversations in between. The more I wrote, the more my hand relaxed. It felt like I was finally letting go of something I'd been holding in for years. I've been living in this house, paying the bills, taking care of things, smiling when I don't feel like smiling, helping with homework, cooking meals, doing laundry, showing up. And yet, I feel like I've vanished. Like I'm here in body but not in spirit. Like I'm wallpaper. I paused again and listened. Laughter came from the living room. My daughter watching something on her tablet. My son was yelling into his headset, playing some online game. My wife's voice on a work call, even though it was Sunday night. No one asked where I'd gone. No one asked how I was. No one noticed the bags under my eyes or the scratch on my hand from the cabin screen door. It was like I'd never left. Back to the letter. This isn't me trying to run away. I'm not leaving you. I'm not threatening anything. But I am asking for something. I'm asking to matter. I am asking to be seen again, not just as dad or honey or the guy who takes out the trash, but as Daniel, a human being with feelings, dreams, and limits. I stopped. Took a deep breath. Poured a glass of water. My throat felt dry, like I'd been yelling, even though the house was still dead quiet, to me at least. Then I added this. Do you remember when we used to talk? I mean really talk. In the car, at night, in bed, at the dinner table. I miss that. I miss being asked about my day and feeling like someone actually wanted to hear the answer. I miss laughing. I miss hugs that weren't rushed. I miss feeling like this house was a place for me, not just somewhere I belonged out of obligation. That part hurt, because it was true. And admitting it, writing it, made it more real. I thought about stopping. I thought maybe it was too much, too dramatic. But I'd already disappeared once. I didn't want to disappear again without leaving something behind. So I kept going. I know I've played a part in this too. I stopped speaking up. I made it easy to ignore me. I became predictable. I didn't demand attention. And maybe I should have. Maybe I should have shaken the walls a little instead of folding laundry and hoping someone would look me in the eye. I wrote that last part slower than the rest, because it stung. But again, truth. No more pretending. Then I closed it out. I'm not writing this for pity. I'm not writing this for some emotional explosion. I'm writing it because if we don't fix this, if we don't feel like a family again, I'm afraid of what comes next. I don't want to wake up at 50 wondering what happened to my life. I don't want to keep walking into rooms and feeling like a stranger. I love you all. Deeply. That's why I'm writing this at all. Danielle. I folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, wrote "Please read" on the front. And then I just sat there, staring at it. That envelope, that piece of paper, it held more of me than anyone in this house had seen in years. I placed it on the kitchen table, right in the center. Couldn't miss it. And I waited. An hour passed. Then 2. Everyone still in their corners of the house. Nobody walked into the kitchen. Nobody saw it. Or if they did, they didn't care enough to open it. So I stayed up. I sat in the dark. The kind of dark that creeps under your skin. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't check the news. I didn't even eat dinner. I just listened. To the house. To myself. And I made a decision. If by morning no one had read that letter, I'd leave again. Not forever, but long enough to make them realize I'm not invisible. Because sometimes silence isn't peace. It's a scream no one hears. I barely slept that night. Just laid on my side, staring at the ceiling fan spin slow circles above me, listening to the occasional creak of the house settling. My brain wouldn't shut off. It kept playing reruns, old memories, old arguments, old laughter I could barely hear anymore. I got out of bed at 5:47 a.m. like always. Habit's a strange thing. You can be falling apart and still reach for the coffee filters on autopilot. The kitchen was cold. Dim light from the window spilled across the floor like a weak apology. And there it was. The envelope. Still sitting dead center on the table. Unopened. Untouched. Not even moved. I stared at it while the coffee brewed. A part of me thought maybe they read it and just put it back. But I knew better. There wasn't a single fingerprint on the flap. That envelope hadn't been touched by human hands since I put it there the night before. And that broke something in me. By 6:30, the kitchen started waking up. First, my daughter shuffled in, rubbing her eyes, clutching her iPad like a teddy bear. She sat down at the table, 2 feet from the envelope, and didn't even glance at it. Just started watching some video where a grown woman squealed about slime. I poured her some cereal. She didn't say thank you. She didn't say anything. 10 minutes later, my son walked in, earbuds already in, hoodie up. He made a beeline for the fridge, grabbed a soda, yes soda, at 6:45 a.m., and walked back out. Didn't even sit down. Didn't even see the letter. Or me. I could have been a lamp for all he cared. My wife came in around 7, hair in a messy bun, still in pajamas, eyes on her phone. She mumbled something like morning. But it wasn't aimed at anyone in particular. She poured herself coffee, took one sip, made a face like it was too strong, and dumped half of it out. Then she sat down at the table, right in front of the letter. She pulled out her laptop, opened Zoom, started typing, never looked down. I watched the steam rise from her mug, thinking, that's how fast I'm disappearing. I sat there for a while longer, saying nothing, waiting, hoping, but nothing happened. The envelope might as well have been invisible. I thought about sliding it closer, just nudging it forward with a quiet, "Hey, I wrote something." But the truth is, if I had to ask them to read it, it wouldn't mean anything. They had to want to read it. They had to care enough to wonder. And clearly they didn't. So I got up, walked upstairs, packed the same small overnight bag, just the essentials. Only this time I included something extra, the notebook I'd started at the cabin, just in case I had more to say, because at this point writing felt more honest than speaking. At least the page listened. Before I left, I walked back into the kitchen. My wife was still on her laptop, earbuds in. My daughter was now filming herself doing some dance I didn't recognize. My son was probably back in his room, yelling at strangers through a headset. I picked up the envelope. No one noticed. I stood in that doorway for 10 full seconds, waiting for someone to glance up. To say, "Wait, where are you going?" But no one did. So I left. This time I drove a little further. Not just out of town, but out past where GPS starts getting spotty. I found another place on the fly, a roadside motel with flickering neon lights and a parking lot full of potholes. The kind of place no one stays for long. Perfect. Room 104 smelled like bleach and cheap soap. There was a Gideon Bible in the drawer and a vending machine outside that only took quarters. But it had a bed, and a desk, and quiet. So I sat down, and I wrote again. This time it wasn't a letter. It was a list. At the top I wrote, "What I miss about being me." And I let it pour out, laughing with friends who actually listen. Music that makes my heart beat faster. Playing guitar until my fingers ached. My wife's smile. The real one. Not the tired version. My son asking for advice. My daughter's drawings when she used to make them for me. Late night talks. Random hugs. Being wanted. Being known. Being Daniel. I stopped after that one. Because that's what it came down to. I missed being me. I stayed in that motel the whole day. Didn't call. Didn't text. Turned my phone back on for the first time in days. Not a single missed call. Not one. No, where are you? No, are you okay? No, we read the letter. That night, I stood outside the room and looked up at the stars. Not many. Just a few poking through the haze, but I hadn't looked up in years. Not really. I'd been looking down, at my feet, at the floor, at the next task. For so long, I forgot what it was like to look up and feel small in a good way. The next morning, I woke up early again. My body still trained to dad hours. I made instant coffee in the little machine by the sink and sat back down with the notebook. This time I wrote, "If they don't ask where I am today, I don't think I can go back." And for the first time since this whole thing started, that thought didn't scare me. It felt calm, clear, not like a threat, more like a boundary. Because love, real love, shouldn't feel like vanishing into a fog. By noon, I still hadn't heard from them. And that's when I made another decision. If they weren't going to come find me, then maybe I needed to find myself. It sounds like something from a self-help book, I know. But when you sit alone long enough, when your phone doesn't ring, when your name hasn't passed someone's lips in days, you start asking questions. And not surface-level stuff like, What do I want for lunch? Real questions. Like, who am I when I'm not needed? Do I even like who I've become? If I met myself at a party, would I talk to me? I looked around the motel room. The curtains were crooked. The TV remote had no batteries. The tiny notepad on the nightstand had the motel's name on it. Sunset Rest Inn. Rest. That word felt foreign. I grabbed the notepad and started writing again. Not a letter. Not a list. Just thoughts. My name is Daniel. I'm 40. I used to play guitar. I used to laugh so loud my stomach hurt. I once stayed up all night talking with a girl I thought I'd marry. I did marry her. I used to write dumb poems just to make her smile. I loved Sunday mornings. I made pancakes. I told terrible jokes. I paused. Then added, now I do dishes. I pick up socks. I get asked for money. I get told to hold on a second. I haven't heard someone say they missed me in... I don't remember how long. Around 2 p.m., I decided to leave the motel. I didn't want to sit still anymore. My body felt restless. Like if I didn't move, I'd sink into that bed and disappear forever. I drove without a destination. Just pointed the car toward the highway and let the road decide. About 30 minutes later, I pulled into a small downtown area I'd never been to. It was one of those old towns with brick sidewalks and faded storefronts. A record shop. A barber with spinning red and white stripes. A diner with a sign that just said diner. I parked and walked in. The place smelled like bacon and burnt toast. The kind of place where the waitress calls you hun, whether you're 15 or 85. I slid into a booth near the window. The vinyl seat was cracked, but it held me like it had known me for years. Coffee? The waitress asked, already pouring. Please, I said. It felt good to say please and have someone respond. She handed me a menu with 4 pages, but I already knew what I wanted. Pancakes, I said. And eggs. Over easy. You got it, hun. As I waited, I looked out the window. People passed by slowly, holding shopping bags, holding hands, living. I wondered if anyone in my family had realized yet that I was gone again. Part of me wanted to check my phone. Maybe I had a voicemail, a text, even a "where are you?" but I didn't. Instead, I looked around the diner. A couple in the corner was sharing a milkshake. An older man at the counter was laughing with the cook. And then, across the room, I saw a father and his teenage son. They weren't talking, but they were there, together, eating, sitting, just being. I couldn't stop staring. The waitress brought my food. I thanked her. Then I took my time eating. Every bite was warm. Real. It was the first meal I'd truly tasted in months. Somewhere between the last bite of pancake and the last sip of coffee, I decided something. I wasn't going back. Not today. Not just to fade into the background again. I found a bookstore a few blocks down. Used books. Dusty shelves. A cat sleeping on a pile of paperbacks. I walked inside. No plan. Just curious. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. I wandered through the fiction section. My fingers brushed over the spines. Steinbeck. Vonnegut. Morrison. Names that once meant something to me before life got loud. And then I saw it. A thin, worn copy of Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. I hadn't read it since college. I bought it. Cash. No bag. Just walked out, holding it in my hand like it was a lifeline. That night I checked into a new place, a little B&B on a hill overlooking a lake. The woman at the front desk gave me a real key. Not a plastic card. A key. My room had a fireplace and a thick wool blanket. No TV. No clock. Perfect. I sat by the window, book in hand, and read until the words blurred together. Then I picked up my notebook again, and I wrote, I miss being curious. I miss feeling like life was mine to shape. I miss my name being said with love, not obligation. Then I flipped the page and wrote something I hadn't thought about in years. The last time someone really saw me was probably myself. That line hit hard. Because maybe this wasn't just about being ignored by my family. Maybe it was about the version of me I let disappear. I'd stopped fighting for myself. Stopped asking questions. Stopped exploring. Stopped saying what I needed. And when you stop showing up for yourself, don't be surprised when no one else does either. Before I went to bed, I finally checked my phone. One missed call. From an unknown number. No voicemail. No text. Nothing from home. That little flicker of hope. Gone. But strangely, I didn't feel angry. I felt calm. I put the phone on airplane mode and slid it into the drawer. Then I lay back in bed, arms folded behind my head, staring at the ceiling. No fan spinning this time. Just stillness. And for the first time since I left, I didn't feel like I was running away. I felt like I was walking towards something. I woke up with sunlight on my face. No alarm. No responsibilities. Just the sound of birds and the faint whisper of wind through the trees outside. I got dressed slowly. Pulled on jeans, a t-shirt. No rush. No voice yelling from down the hall about missing shoes or spilled juice. No email buzz reminding me of some broken thing I was supposed to fix. I walked down to the kitchen where the B&B owner, a kind woman named June with silver hair and kind eyes, was laying out breakfast. "Hungry?" she asked. "Starving," I said, and I meant it. But not just for food. She smiled and poured me coffee. "It's a good day to sit on the porch and just be." I nodded. "That's exactly what I need." And so I did. I sat outside for an hour, maybe more, watching the lake ripple gently under the breeze, watching squirrels dart up trees, watching life happen. And for once, I didn't feel guilty for doing nothing. For once, I felt allowed. After breakfast, I went back to my room and opened my notebook. Flipped past the lists, the letters, the emotional weight I'd been dumping out for days. I turned to a blank page and wrote one word: voice. I didn't know why that word came first, but it did. Maybe because that's what I'd lost the most. My voice. Not the one I used to talk about homework or trash day or did we pay the cable bill? My real voice. The one that used to tell stories, share thoughts, ask big questions. The one that mattered. And maybe it was starting to come back. Because in the quiet, I started talking again. To myself, mostly. But still, talking. I said things like, what if I started writing again? What if I didn't just go home, but came home different? What if I finally asked for what I need? I felt like I was reintroducing myself to myself. Like I was shaking hands with a man named Daniel, who'd been hiding behind chores and silence for years. Around noon, I took a walk down by the lake. I didn't bring my phone, didn't bring my notebook, just walked. A guy was sitting on the dock, legs dangling over the edge, fishing pole in hand. Probably early 50s, gray beard, weathered hands. He looked over and nodded. "Beautiful out today," he said. "Yeah," I replied. "Feels good to be out." "On vacation?" he asked. I paused, then said something like that. He smiled. "You look like a man figuring something out." I laughed. "You're not far off." We talked for a bit. Just simple stuff, weather, the fish, the best diner in town. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "I disappeared once too." I turned. "Years ago," he said. "Got tired of being someone everyone leaned on but no one looked at. Took off. Just went quiet. I figured if no one noticed, maybe I wasn't really there in the first place." He paused, reeled in his line. "Didn't catch anything. But turns out leaving didn't fix what was broken. Not by itself anyway." "What did?" I asked. He looked at me, eyes clearer than I expected. "I came back and told the truth. Not just to them, to myself. Then I let go of who I thought I had to be and started being who I really was. He stood up, nodded once, and walked away. Just like that. No big goodbye. Just a stranger with a mirror. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. His words bounced around in my head like a riddle I almost understood. I pulled out my notebook again. Wrote, "Leaving isn't healing, but sometimes you have to leave to remember what healing even looks like." Then underneath that, I don't want to go back to how it was, but I don't want to stay gone forever. I want to come back honest. I want to come back me. That night, I built a fire in the little fireplace, watched it dance. And then, for the first time in years, I picked up a guitar. Yeah, turns out the B&B had one. June said it belonged to her son, but he hadn't been back in a while. She offered it like it was meant for me. I tuned it slowly, fingers shaky, rusty, but I played. Nothing fancy. Just a few chords I remembered from back in the day. My hands knew more than my brain did, and I sang, softly, half whispers, words that didn't rhyme, feelings that didn't need to be perfect, just mine. The next morning, I woke up lighter than I had in years. I made a decision, not to go home immediately, but to go toward it, to stop hiding, to let my voice be heard. And if they still couldn't hear it, then I'd keep speaking anyway, because I'd finally remembered who I was. After breakfast, I sat outside on the porch with my notebook in my lap. The lake was calm again, glassy and still, like it had been waiting for me to notice it. The sky had that perfect early blue not yet burned by the sun. I opened to a fresh page, wrote at the top, "Next steps," and just stared at it. Because as good as I felt, I knew something was coming. Something real. Eventually I'd have to talk to them. Really talk. Not letters. Not silence. Not walking out the front door with a packed bag. I'd have to use my voice. Out loud. The thought made my stomach tighten. I pulled my phone from the drawer. Turned off airplane mode. Half expecting the screen to light up like a Christmas tree. It didn't. No calls. No texts. Same silence. Same void. But now it didn't crush me. It confirmed something. It confirmed that this story wasn't just about being ignored. It was about how long I'd been quiet. How long I'd let things slip without saying anything. How easy I'd made it for them to stop listening. I had taught them that silence was okay. And now I had to teach them the opposite. I went for a walk. Through town, past the diner, past the bookstore, past a small park where kids were playing on rusted swings and moms were talking over coffee. I found a bench and sat down, pulled out my phone again, hovered over my wife's name. It had been nearly 5 days since I left. 5 days of distance. 5 days of space. 5 days of not being, "Dad, honey, can you grab that?" Or, "Did you fix the thing?" I stared at her contact photo. It was old, a picture from a summer trip 5 years ago. She was smiling, holding a melting ice cream cone. We were both sweaty, happy, sunburned. I barely recognized that version of us. I took a breath. Pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then went to voicemail. I closed my eyes. The tone beeped, and I started to speak. "Hey, it's me." Pause. "I don't know if you've even noticed I've been gone this long. Or maybe you have and just didn't know what to say. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you think this was selfish. And maybe it was a little." I took a shaky breath. But it was also necessary. Because I couldn't keep doing it. The pretending. The nodding. The quiet fading. I felt like a stranger in my own life. And the truth is, I think I started to believe I didn't matter anymore. My voice cracked. I let it. No point in hiding now. I know I disappeared. Twice. That's on me. I should have spoken up sooner. I should have said something instead of slipping into the background like a shadow. But I need you to hear this now. Long pause. I'm still here. I haven't given up, but I won't come back to silence. I won't come back to pretending. I want us to talk, really talk. No more status updates. No more shoulder pats and distracted eye contact. I want us to fight if we need to. Cry if we need to. Reconnect. If that's even something you want to. Another deep breath. I love you. I love the kids. I never stopped. But love doesn't mean staying invisible. It means showing up and being seen. I'm trying to do that now. I glanced down at the phone. 20 seconds left on the recording. I'm staying at a little place called Riverbend Inn, just outside of town. Room 3. I'll be here until Sunday. If you want to talk, I'm ready. Beep. I sat there on the bench long after the call ended, my hands shaking, my heart thudding against my ribs. I felt raw, open, like I'd just jumped off a cliff and didn't know if there was water or concrete below. But I also felt something else, relief. Because for the first time in this whole mess, I hadn't written. I hadn't disappeared. I'd spoken. I'd used my voice. That night, I didn't check the phone again. Didn't obsess over whether she'd called back. Didn't pace the room, wondering if I'd said too much or too little. Instead, I lit the fireplace again, picked up the guitar, played a slow tune I half remembered from college, and I sang, softly, honestly, just for me. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. There was something electric in the air. Like the air before a storm, but calm. Charged, but not dangerous. I made coffee, sat by the window, and I waited. Not anxiously, not with expectations, just waited. If she came, she came. If she didn't, I'd still be okay. Because I'd already found the most important thing I'd lost. My voice. The minutes passed slowly. The steam from the coffee rose in thin spirals. I watched a bird land on the edge of the porch railing, tilt its head, then fly off again. It was a peaceful kind of emptiness, not like the silence back home, the one that used to press against my chest like weight. This silence was soft, open, still, with every passing car that rolled by on the gravel road. My ears perked, just a little. I reminded myself, you're not waiting to be rescued. You're waiting to see who still wants to reach you. At 8:32 a.m. it happened. 3 quiet knocks on the door. I froze. It wasn't the cleaning staff. They usually came later. And no one else knew I was here. Just her. My heart picked up pace. I stood up slowly, walked to the door and placed my hand on the knob. Paused. What if it wasn't her? What if it was, and she didn't say what I needed to hear? I took a breath and opened the door. There she was. Hair pulled into a loose ponytail. No makeup. Hoodie. Eyes tired but focused. She looked older than I remembered. Not because of time, but because of all the quiet we'd let grow between us. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me like she was trying to find someone she used to know. I stepped aside. Come in, I said softly. She nodded and walked past me. Sat down on the edge of the bed, hands clasped. Didn't look up right away. I poured her a cup of coffee, handed it to her. She took it with a quiet, thanks. And then, finally, she spoke. I listened to your voicemail twice, she said. Then I listened to it again this morning. I nodded. I didn't know what to say, she added. Still don't. But I knew I had to come. I sat down across from her. I'm glad you did. She looked around the room. The fireplace, the notebook on the table, the guitar leaning against the chair. You really left, she said. Like left. I had to, I replied. It was either leave for a few days or disappear for good. She flinched a little at that, but didn't argue. I think I stopped seeing you, she said after a moment. Not because I didn't care. Just life got loud. The kids, work, bills, it all piled up. And you were just there. Always reliable. Always quiet. I let it happen, I said. I let myself shrink. I made it easy to forget I had needs too. We were both quiet for a while. Then she asked, "Did you think about not coming back?" I looked at her, honest. Yes. I thought about what it might look like to start over. Not because I don't love you, but because I didn't feel loved back. Not in a way I could feel. She nodded slowly. That hurts to hear. But I get it. She set the coffee cup down and leaned forward, elbows on knees. I don't know how we got here, she said. We stopped talking, I said. Stop touching. Stop showing up for each other. We became partners in logistics, not life, she sighed. It's been like this for a while, hasn't it? Years, I said. If we're being honest. Another pause. Then she looked up. So what do we do now? I stood. Walked over to the notebook on the table. Handed it to her. She opened it. Flipped through pages. Read the letter. The lists. The raw, messy handwriting. The underlined sentences. The ones that had tear stains on them. Her eyes welled up. This is you, she whispered. It's all I had left, I said. Words. When no one was listening, I wrote them down so I wouldn't lose myself completely. She closed the notebook and held it to her chest. Then said something I wasn't expecting. Can I stay here with you? I blinked. What? Not forever, she said quickly. Just a night. I don't want to go back to that house and pretend things are fine. I want to sit in this space. With you. And feel what we forgot. It took me a second to respond. Then I nodded. Yeah, you can stay. We didn't talk much the rest of the day. We went for a walk by the lake, sat on a bench. She told me about how hard it's been juggling work and the kids, and how she's been running on empty for a long time too, just in a different way. I told her about the diner, the man at the dock, the bookstore. She smiled. You always were good at noticing small things. I stopped, I admitted, until I had space to see them again. That night, we shared the bed. No tension, no agenda, just warmth. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't need to. I just laid there, listening to her breath, remembering that we were once two people who chose each other. And maybe, just maybe, we could do it again. The next morning, we packed our bags in silence. Not uncomfortable silence, more like reverence. Like we both understood something had shifted, and we didn't want to break it with words too soon. She folded her hoodie slowly. I tucked my notebook into my backpack like it was something sacred. Before we left the room, she looked around once. You're different, she said. I turned. Different how? Quieter. But stronger, she said. It's like something in you finally stood up. I nodded. Something did. The drive home was quiet but not heavy. The air between us wasn't thick with avoidance anymore. It felt like breathing for the first time with the windows down. Imperfect, but real. We didn't turn on the radio. No music, no podcasts. Just the road and the occasional soft comment. You remember when we passed through here with the kids? She asked as we drove past a field. I think we stopped for ice cream, I replied. Right, she said, smiling. You got that terrible bubblegum flavor. I regret nothing. She laughed. It wasn't loud, but it was her. I hadn't heard it in months, maybe years. About 20 miles from home, she turned to me. I've been scared, she said. Of what? That we already lost each other. That it's too late. I kept my eyes on the road, but I reached over and placed my hand on hers. It's not too late, I said. But we have to choose each other again. On purpose. Every day, she nodded. I want to. So do I. And we drove the rest of the way in silence, the good kind. When we pulled into the driveway, everything looked the same. Same crooked mailbox. Same chalk drawings on the sidewalk from our daughter. Same dent in the garage door I kept meaning to fix. But it felt different. The house didn't intimidate me anymore. It didn't feel like a place where I'd been forgotten. It felt like somewhere I could return to as a whole person. We stepped out of the car together. The dog barked from the front window. The curtain shifted. Then a small face appeared. "Our daughter." She waved. I waved back. And just like that, we were home. Inside, the kids were in their usual spots. Son in his room, headset on. Daughter curled up on the couch with her tablet. Only this time, when they saw us, they noticed. "Dad," my son said, standing in his doorway. "Hi, bud. You okay?" I smiled. "Getting there." My daughter ran up and hugged my waist without saying a word. Just squeezed. I looked at my wife. She was watching me. Really watching. Like she hadn't seen me in years. We didn't pretend everything was fine. We sat down as a family that night, all four of us, phones off, no distractions. And we talked. At first it was awkward. Like stretching muscles you haven't used in a while. But then something clicked. I told them where I'd been. Not every detail, but enough. Enough for them to understand this wasn't about running from them, but toward myself. I told them how I felt, how invisible I'd become, how I didn't blame them, but I couldn't live like that anymore. And then I listened. My son, awkward and mumbly, said, "I guess I didn't really notice, but not because I don't care. I didn't know you felt like that." "I know," I said. My daughter started to cry. "I thought you left for good." "I didn't," I said, pulling her into my arms. "I just needed to remember who I was, so I could come back better." My wife sat beside me, holding my hand, eyes full of something between sadness and relief. And we promised, out loud, one by one, to do better. To see each other. To check in. To ask. To hear. It wasn't magic. It wasn't perfect. But it was honest. And that was enough for the first night. Later, after the kids went to bed, I sat out on the porch. Guitar in my lap. Quiet breeze brushing past. She came out and sat beside me. "I want us back," she said. "Not the way it was. The way it can be." I nodded. "So do I," and I started to play. A quiet tune. Nothing fancy. She leaned her head on my shoulder. And I realized, maybe this isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's the first page of a new one. In the days that followed, everything didn't magically fix itself. The house didn't suddenly become a perfect harmony of connection and peace. There were still bills, still schedules, still forgotten lunches and laundry and noise. But something had shifted. The silence was different. It wasn't the kind that comes from distance or disconnection. It was the kind that comes when people are learning to listen again. And slowly, they began to. My wife started setting her phone down more often. Not always, not perfectly, but sometimes. That mattered. Sometimes she'd touch my arm when she walked past me in the kitchen. Just a little moment. A gesture that said, "I see you." She started asking how my day was. And here's the wild part. She waited for the answer. My son, 15 and emotionally allergic to sincerity, started showing up in his own way. He asked if I wanted to play a game with him one night. I'm not a gamer. I still don't fully understand what I was doing. But we sat on that couch, passing the controller back and forth, and laughing. Like actual laughing, like us. He didn't say anything deep or dramatic. But when I stood up to go to bed that night, he said, "Hey, Dad." I turned. Yeah? He didn't meet my eyes. It was cool hanging out 3 seconds. That's all. But it was more than I'd heard from him in years. My daughter started drawing again. One afternoon I came home from work and there was a picture taped to my side of the fridge. It was a messy crayon drawing of me with a guitar and a big smile. Above it, in huge letters, "Daddy plays music again." I stood there for 5 minutes. Didn't even take my shoes off. Just stared. Because someone had seen me. Not just the dad who packs lunches, but the man who creates, who feels, who exists. And me, I didn't shrink anymore. If something felt off, I said it. If I needed help, I asked. If I wanted time alone, I took it and didn't apologize. I kept writing in the notebook. Not every day, but often enough to keep my voice tuned. Sometimes I wrote about nothing, just the way the sunlight hit the porch, or how coffee tasted better on slow mornings. Sometimes I wrote about them, how we were rebuilding, awkward and hopeful. And one night I wrote this. Maybe the goal was never to be heard all the time. Maybe it was to finally speak when it mattered, and to believe I deserved to be heard. One evening, we had dinner on the back patio. No phones. Just grilled chicken, corn on the cob, and voices. At one point, my daughter looked up and said, "This is nice." And my wife smiled and said, "Yeah, it is." It wasn't profound. It wasn't movie-level dramatic, but it was real. That's what healing actually looks like. Not giant speeches, not emotional fireworks, but small, steady shifts. Moments that say, "I'm still here. And I still want you here too." Sometimes I still catch myself drifting. Old habits don't vanish, they creep back. The urge to go silent when things get loud. To say I'm fine when I'm not. But now I catch it. Now I say, I need a moment. Now I walk outside, take a breath, and write something down. Now I speak. And when I do, they listen. Not always perfectly. Not always immediately. But they listen. Because they know how close they came to losing me. Not to death. Not to divorce. But to disappearing. I don't think I'll ever fully go back to the version of me that disappeared that Friday night. And I'm glad. Because that man was silent. That man believed his value came from usefulness. That man thought he had to keep the peace by becoming invisible. The man I am now, he believes in his voice. He believes that love is not just sacrifice, but presence. He believes that disappearing is sometimes the first step to being found. So if you're sitting there right now, feeling unseen, feeling erased, feeling like your voice doesn't matter, let me tell you, it does. You do. Sometimes the world just needs a little reminder. And sometimes, so do the people closest to us. Don't be afraid to speak. Even if it's messy. Even if it's quiet at first. Even if it's just a note on a kitchen table. Because when you speak, you give others the chance to say, "We see you now." And when they finally do, that changes everything.